Well, hello folks, and welcome to Homesteader News. Hey, we got a good program for you this week. We're going to start working on our salad garden, which is in raised beds. Hey, it's been a long, hard winter here in Utah. Very cold temperatures, lots of snow, and we don't even really get done with winter until around March. And we've had so much wind and we've had so many cold nights that I haven't even been able to get outside to do too much. We finally got a nice sunny day. It looks like our weather's going to clear up. So I'd like to take you and show you what I do to amend my soil because my box beds, my raised beds, have now been about 3 years since I've really done too much to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I amend my soil to make it fit for raising plants. And I'm sure I've got a lot of cleanup work I got to do out there. So come on along with me. I'll show you my raised beds and I'll show you how to put in a spring salad garden. Okay folks, here I am on my front porch taking a look at what I got to work with, and boy do we got a mess. Over winter things have been blown into my flower beds, weeds have cropped up everywhere. So the first thing I got to do is do some cleanup. Now you'll notice that my front yard's maybe a little bit different than most. I don't have any grass in my front yard. Instead what I have is these planter boxes, grow boxes, that are made out of 8-inch pine lumber. And you'll see this one has a rail across the top of it, and I'll explain what that's for. I have 2 of these right in my front yard, and this is my salad garden. What I like to do is come right out my front door. I like to pick me some tomatoes and lettuce and onions and things like that for a salad, so I can just grab these real close. It also is convenient because if you got animals around like chickens that you free range like I do, the chickens like to get into your garden and they'll eat everything up. We like them to take care of the bugs, but sometimes they can make a mess of the garden. So if it's right here next to the house, I can keep them out of that. And I'll explain some techniques we use for keeping the animals out. Now these beds are 8-inch just pine scrap lumber. And underneath the beds, you'll notice there's a plastic. And I use black plastic. And the plastic is laid underneath there to keep the moisture in the soil so I don't have to water as much. There's slots cut into that plastic so it does drain away, but it drains real slowly, and that way you don't have to have a lot of soil. And if you have poor soil like we do here, this is a lot of sandy soil, you have to amend it a lot. The native soil is good for weeds but not good for growing much else unless you do some fixing to it. So that's what we're going to do with these beds. Now these beds have been here about 3 years, and I've grown gardens in it every year. Produces enough salad garden for me and my girlfriend, and that's really about all we need. I do grow a larger garden on my other part of the property, and I'll show you that at some point, but for today we're going to focus on these raised beds. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my soil amendments out. I'm going to do some cleanup, and we'll show you what we need to do to fix this soil, because you can see that it's real hard packed and dry. Been sitting over winter, and it needs to be fixed. If you just amend on top of that soil and you don't fix that soil, what's going to happen is the roots will hit that hard pack. They won't be able to go any farther, and you're going to have not much of a root system for your plants. They're not going to get much nutrients. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to clean all this stuff out of the boxes, and I'm going to take my shovel and I'm going to dig down inside this dirt here, and I'm going to get that out so that it's nice and soft. And then we're going to start adding our amendments to it. So let's get busy. We'll do some cleanup here. Okay folks, well I've got the soil dug back up that was already in the boxes, and what I used is this thing that's called a 4-tine spade, or the old timers call this a spud digger. And I actually inherited this one. It's probably over 50 years old. I inherited it from my folks. And it's dug a lot of spuds up, and it's used because you can get underneath the spuds and pull them up to the soil without breaking up the root system and without digging up too much soil or cutting through them with a regular shovel. Those are real nice to have if you're looking for an implement that you want to dig up some soil and break up the clods. That's a good thing to have. The only other tools you probably need for this project is a rake, and I use a metal tine rake, and of course something to dig down so that you can plant your plants, which is just a little spade. Now what we're going to be amending the soil with is some topsoil, and I've got 3 bags of topsoil for each box, and then I've got some steer manure, which helps the soil by adding some nitrogen to it and also keeps the soil from clumping so much. So I like to add a bag of steer manure to each box, and then I've got a large bag of what they call compressed sphagnum peat moss. and I'll put half a bag in each side. Now, peat moss is a real good thing to add to your garden beds or to a regular garden because it holds on to moisture. It's a little bit like a sponge. It'll hold on to the moisture longer, keep the moisture in the soil longer, so it doesn't just run right off, run down to the bottom. So I like to mix a little bit of peat moss into it. Now, these beds haven't been fixed in 3 years, and about every 3 years it's a good idea to amend your soil. You can see that these boxes are now kind of low on dirt. What happens is the wind blows through here pretty good, picks up the dirt and carries it off. So eventually I'm going to end up with not enough soil for a good root system. So we're going to add some soil, topsoil, then we're going to amend it with some steer manure and some sphagnum moss. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start laying those bags in here, and then we'll spread them out and I'll explain a little bit more. Okay folks, I've got the beds filled up with the amendments now. I've added all the bags to this bed. It doesn't really matter what order you put them in because you're going to mix it all together anyway, and the easiest way is with that spud fork that I showed you. You can break up the clods that way, and you can see that that pretty much filled my boxes right back up to the top, which is what I was looking for. Now we're ready to start planting. Now we're at here in Utah, you can only plant vegetables this early, certain types of vegetables, and what we're going to be planting is some lettuce today, which will handle colder weather. It's only April 1st here. We can plant the cold weather plants usually starting in April if you protect them, but you can't plant any of the warm weather plants until usually around end of May, June is usually when I start getting my tomatoes and things like that in. The real broad leafy plants, the lettuces, your potatoes, your cabbages and things like that, they can go in earlier. They can tolerate the colder nights that we still have here, and we may even get frost at night. And I'm also going to show you that rail that they're sitting on there. I'm going to show you how I protect my plants so I can get them in a little bit earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant these, and I always look at the instructions to see what it says, how far apart on these. And in this case, they like these to be about 18 inches apart. Now, a good book that I would recommend for everybody is called Square Foot Gardening. And I'll have a link to that on my website. You can go and get it. It allows you to grow a lot of food in a small amount of space. Now, these boxes are 4 foot by, I believe, 10 foot long, and you can plant a tremendous amount of food in a box that size. Using 2 of these boxes like I do, I said we'll take care of pretty much 2 people for a salad garden, and that's really all you need. So I want you to go and look at that book called Square Foot Gardening. Consider ordering that because it'll help you to reduce the size and see that you can plant a garden in a small amount of space. So what we've done, we've got our soil all mixed up here, and we're going to use this thing called a hand spade, and we're going to use that just to dig down into our soil according to the directions that are on the little labels that are on the plants. And in this case it says to plant them pot deep, so that's how deep the pots are. So that's about how deep we're going to go, which is about 4 inches. I usually like to plant them just a little bit deeper than that. Don't want to get it up on the leaves, but I want to get that root really down deep good in the soil, and I kind of mound the soil up around, and that helps to protect them so that they don't get too cold. So I'm going to go ahead and plant those in, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay folks, I've got them in, and what I've got planted here is I've got a romaine lettuce, that's the big green leaf lettuce, and then I've got a red leaf lettuce, and these are 2 varieties that I really enjoy on a salad. Now the great thing about these is you don't have to pull up the plant in order to eat them. All you have to do is take off the leaves. They'll get big heads of leaves that'll just kind of spread out, kind of be all over the place here, take over this whole end of the box pretty much. And then when I want a salad, all I do is I just come out and pull off some leaves off of both varieties, take those in and fix me up a salad. And they'll keep on producing until it gets real hot, and then they usually wilt down and they'll go away, and I'll plant something else, a warmer variety of plant on this end of the box. But they'll be producing now for probably 3-4 months. They'll produce real good. And that's my salad right there. On this other end of the box, when it warms up, then I'll add in my tomatoes, some cherry tomatoes, maybe some pepper plants, some other things like that. In the other box, I'll put in my asparagus and probably some melons, some other things I like to add and eat just right off the vine. So that's how we take care of that. Now, here's the situation. If I don't protect these plants, they're probably going to die because our winters are still, or our nights are still very cold here. So I need to protect them from that real cold wind more than anything. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, this box has this rail, just a 2x4 rail attached on both ends. And what I'm going to do, instead of creating and building a big greenhouse like some people have, which can be very expensive, especially if you only use it for a short amount of time, what I do is I use this rail that goes across my box, and I make a small greenhouse just using some simple plastic. some clear plastic that you can buy about anywhere for about $6 a roll. And what it is I make a tent, a teepee, basically over these plants. I'll attach it to one side with staples and a board, and then roll it over the top of that rail, attach it to the top of the rail, and then I'll attach it to a piece of PVC so I can roll it up. And that way I can, during the daytime when I think it's going to get too hot for the plants, I'll roll that up, that way they can breathe. At night I'll roll that back down, closing back in that protection from the wind, keeps the soil a lot warmer so those plants will keep growing and won't be affected too much by the cold. It also warms up that soil so that I can get just a little bit of a head start on my neighbors and put my tomato plants in. So instead of having to wait maybe till June, I might be able to get into May and May 15th maybe and get my tomato plants started in there. So I like to have that plastic up over there, and I only do this on one of my beds. The other bed is used strictly for warmer plants, and so I won't need it over that. However, you could put these on all of your beds if you wanted to, and it gives you a head start. It's a lot cheaper than building a regular greenhouse. So I'm going to go ahead and put the plastic on that, show you how it's done. Alright, here we've got the raised bed covered with plastic, as you can see, just stapled to the bottom. You may want to attach some scrap wood to the bottom edge of the plastic to keep it from blowing up. Staples usually through 2 or 3 layers of plastic will also hold it. I leave the end so that I can open them up to make it easier for watering, and it just drapes over the top, creates a little teepee tent greenhouse over the plants, and that serves 2 purposes. That'll keep the wind and cold from penetrating deep into the soil, warms the soil up during the daytime, protects plants. It also will help keep the moisture in, because the moisture won't evaporate off as fast. So it heats up, the moisture will go up, hit the plastic, come back down to the plants and stay in there a lot longer, so you don't have to water quite as much with one of these on top of it. However, you don't want to leave these on too long, or if you get days that are too warm, because it will roast your plants and kill them. So you want to watch it carefully. During the daytime you want to roll it up, and that's what that piece of PVC pipe that you can see there is. And I left this edge longer, and what I'll do is I just wrap that around that PVC pipe, roll up one side of it. That makes it easier to water, check on my plants, see how they're doing, do a little weeding if I need to. And then I roll it back down, and I'll put some heavy rocks on the edge of the plastic just to keep it from blowing away. That's about it. Now the plants will do well in that greenhouse there, and will grow a little bit faster than they would just out in the open when it's cold weather like this. In about a month and a half, 2 months, I'll take that plastic off completely, store it away for next season, so I don't have to waste it. And usually that plastic will last me 2 or 3 seasons. Not bad for $6. Okay, so that's pretty good, cheap way to protect your plants during the winter time. You can get those things called wall of waters and other types of products that they produce, but they're expensive. You'll pay $6 for one wall of water, where you can buy an entire roll to cover up your plants, and will probably do just about as good. Now, the only thing I didn't add to this soil was a chemical fertilizer. You can if you want to. This is just an all-purpose lawn and garden food. 16, 16, 16. You can get that. You can add it into your soil. Go easy on it. Don't put in too much. You burn up your plants. When I add in the steer manure, that adds nitrogen to the soil. And then I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do things the way the Native Americans did, which were some of my ancestors. And I've got a real neat project coming up. In fact, I just got part of it today. A real nice find. What you can see there is a white plastic 55-gallon drum. I happened to be driving by the car wash, and he was putting those out in a big pile. I asked him if I could have one or buy one from him. He said, yeah, go ahead and take one. That white drum right there, all I had in it was soap, so that's a real clean drum. What it's going to be used for is I'm going to make a tumbling composter, and I'm also going to show you how you can turn that into a hand crank washing machine if you want one. So that'll be the project for my next video. Watch for that one to come out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that into a composter, and then we're going to turn all my garden scraps, all my food scraps, kitchen scraps, grass clippings, piles of manure, things like that, rabbit droppings and chicken manure. We're going to turn that all into compost. I'm also going to add my fish emulsion, which I'll show you how I make. We'll turn that into a compost, and rather than use a chemical compost, I'll add that into the garden beds, and that builds up the soil. It's a nice nitrogen mix that has some other stuff in it that really helps your plants to grow. So I'm going to show you that. That'll be my next project. Well, people, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed putting together this salad garden, showing you how I do it. Of course, other people have their own ways. This is just my way of doing it. You might try it, give it. I really like the raised beds. I really like the small greenhouse over them. It gives me a little bit of head start on getting my plants in so I can get my garden going. And I guess I better get to work because I still got one more bed to do. Thank you for joining me, folks. Please visit our websites, www.simplesolarhomesteading.com, www.homesteadernews.com. I'll have a lot more information on there. We put out videos. We try to put them out every week on a different subject. We've got some great subjects coming along on solar power and wind power, so I hope you stay tuned. Thank you again. Have a great day, folks.